Today we have a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about the restoration of ancient Cairo in collaboration with the European, and we'll be meeting with the person responsible for this from the EU right after this short break. In a series of cultural events organized by the European Union, the Sultan Qaitbay Fair took place on 30 September, aiming to bring together contemporary artists and local traditional craftspeople who present their work to the public. The House of Sultan Qaitbay opened last July after restoration in an amazing project in which the efforts of the European Union, united with those of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to finance the needed work, execution was carried out by a based architectural company in collaboration with the Ministry of State of Antiquities and Heritage. Such a project helps creating sustainability in the neighborhood by turning it into a showroom where local craftsmen can display their products on a rotational basis. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching today's Youth Live on Nile TV International, and we're glad to be joined today by Mr. Sebastian Trenner, Head of Social Development at the EU. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Masal khair.
Hi, how are you? Masa al-Noor.
I'm all right. Thank you very much for inviting me and being here today.
It's a pleasure having you, sir. We would like to know, you're at the Social Development at the EU. I would first like to know more about your work here in Egypt.
So, I mean, within the EU delegation, we do have different sections. We do have the political persons dealing mostly with the diplomatic affairs as such. We do have the trade section, and then we have the development cooperation people. And development cooperation, there are three different subsections, one of which is human and social development, which is the section that I'm heading.
Right. Can you tell us more about your impression of the diversity of the Egyptian culture? What's your impression about what you've seen here in Egypt?
Well, the thing is, when you come from Europe, of course, the first thing that you hear about Egypt is, and all the references are fair. But then again, there is so much more to it than just this. There is also, of course, the Islamic Egypt, and there is a very vibrant, modern or contemporary arts and culture scene. And what I think is very interesting is to see those different structures and also see the intertwining between them. For instance, if you go right next to the Azhar Park, there is one of the Mamluk mosques. The first stone at the entrance still has hieroglyphs. So basically you can see that the people sort of reappropriated the old in order to translate it into what was then the contemporary. Now with the renovation we can see sort of all those different elements mixed together. So it's impressive, the diversity and the strength and richness that Egypt has to offer in culture.
The diversity in the Egyptian culture, right? Yes. You've seen the Islamic culture and heritage, you've seen the Pharaonic culture and heritage, and the modern one. And what's your work in each of those cultures? Would you tell me more details about what you're actually doing?
What we're doing is, I mean, we do work with many different types of actors which have different needs, right? I mean, our main goal, first off, if you take one step back, is to support Egypt, and in particular in achieving socioeconomic development, particularly for the poor. And for culture, I mean, there are different ideas. Is to actually increase the access of culture so that cultural activities are accessible to most of the Egyptians, or all of the Egyptians ideally. and also to increase diversity so that there is a much more diverse cultural scene. And we are trying also, of course, to be the bridge between sort of what is happening in the European Union in terms of culture and what is happening in Egypt, and try to make people meet and exchange and therefore thereby new things together.
Mm-hmm. Do you work with partners on these projects, and what is your selection criteria?
As I said, we have different partners, and I mean, if we're talking, for instance, working on the structure overall, of course, we would be working hand in hand with the government and government institutions. But we do also work with either our member states, who have a strong representation here, and many of them have cultural institutes and centers. We work with civil society organizations, working on all those different areas, but we also work with the private sector. So it's really a
So you work with both private and public sectors.
Yes.
You work mainly, I think, with the Ministry of Culture.
We work with Ministry of Culture, Antiquities, but also with the Ministry of Tourism, because currently the idea is really to sort of see how the heritage of Egypt can be used to actually leverage economic development so that the population benefits from those resources.
Right. Would you tell me more about the grants that you have dedicated for the cultural activities in Egypt?
Yes, so we do have different ways of allocating them. Either we know exactly what we want, or somebody comes with a proposal to us, and on this basis we can then see if we can support it or not. For instance, we're supporting the efforts to renovate the Tutankhamun Nile in the Egyptian Museum on the Tahrir Square. So that was a project that was presented to us. Something else which we call for proposals, without wanting to be technical, is like a competition. Is we say we have so and so much money to attribute to cultural activities, and all the proposals are welcome, and then we have sort of a selection committee which awards to the best proposals the projects.
Right, we have some photos here. I think it's related maybe to the restoration you were working on.
Yes.
We had a previous picture. Can we see it? Is this by any means the area you're working in?
Yes, this is the one project you started in your opening, and actually we financed the renovation of Haud, which is a draw for the animals, in front of a Mamluk mosque in the City of the Dead, which is a cemetery where people live in Cairo. And this is a picture actually from the opening event with the Sultan himself.
This is the Sultan himself.
Exactly.
Right.
And the idea was sort of to use this Haud, which is a historic monument from the 15th century, as a showcase for local artsmen and craftsmen to actually be showing what they do and selling it. So the idea is really sort of to link up this piece of cultural heritage with the existing ongoing sort of economic activities in the area.
Right. I would like you to explain to our viewers the word Haud, which is the area, the exact area that you were working on for restoration.
So the Haud, and it was actually great that we could do the opening during the holy month of Ramadan. The Haud is actually the place where, back then, when you used to go to prayer, you would come with your animal, on your donkey, on your camel, on your horse. And the Haud was a gift from the Sultan. Is a space where you can actually leave your animal while you go and pray. And so it's part of that charity from the Sultan, and that's why that's the link with sort of the holy month of Ramadan, which is the month of giving. And this place was renovated and is now by the local artsmen to expose and sell their products.
So what we've seen now is that Haud, and the people are selling their products there, the craftsmen.
Yes, some of the pictures were actually pictures that were taken on the square in front of it, but some of the pictures were inside the Haud.
Can we see the pictures another time? Because I think it's very explanatory when we see, yeah. Now this is the Haud.
No, this is actually the main square, and there was this performance, and especially as you can see, the kids were extremely happy to see it. We were too, to be honest.
Yeah.
And the Haud.
That's on the opening day.
That was on the opening day, exactly. Right. Towards the end of the month of Ramadan.
Okay. And this is the Haud where the craftsmen display products.
This was one of the displays exactly of the products that were done by exactly this gentleman that we can see on the picture.
Right, and this is another one, and one of the craftsmen also displaying his products.
Yes.
Right. What was the impression of the people when this house was opened?
Well, the thing is, in this area, because one of the first things that I did, I arrived in Egypt in December 2013, and I think in February or so, I paid my first visit actually to this project. And we could still see, because the renovation wasn't, the place wasn't really taken care of, and people sort of used it more as a waste area, etc., etc. And now I think with the restoration, they see and they have appropriated this place. And now everything is clean, and you can see that they actually are putting their pieces of work and hope of selling it, and they really feel that it's theirs and they're proud of it. It has become again part of their heritage.
Right. I would like to know, do you have a specific budget each year for culture, or it differs from one year to another?
Now, the EU cooperation overall, all projects included in all domains, is, over the last years, is roughly 100 to 130 million euros every year. For culture, it has varied a lot, because of course some years we focus more on some particular aspects, some others on others, depending also on the priorities of both the government and the European Union. But on average, I would say over the last 10 years, we spend 10 million, so it would be 1 million a year take every year. Right.
As our main focus here in this episode is to talk about the restoration of the Sultan Qaid Bey's mosque Haud, I would like you to tell us some of the challenges you faced during your work, your actual work.
Actually, this is one of the pictures where we can see the
right.
So maybe that's good for the viewers.
So this is the exact restoration work, people working.
Exactly. Right. And you see this is a covered space, and this is where people actually afterwards expose what they do. So I think the first work and the first difficulty for the architectural studio, Arkinos, was the whole...
You have to do your research work before starting work.
Exactly, very careful research work. This is how it looked before, when I told you about being more of a waste deposit.
Before starting the restoration.
Exactly, yes.
And how long did it take you, the actual work there?
Well, the actual work itself took about 1 year, but the bulk of the work was of course the research, and then afterwards was also securing the authorization, and this happens in Egypt just like it happens in many other countries around the world. Is, you know, you have something, you renovate it, and because of its value, people tend to sort of close it off. And our idea there was really to sort of make it a lively place that the community owns, and therefore it needs to be open. And so it was about convincing and working with the authorities and trying to see how it can be open without, of course, endangering the cultural heritage or the monument in itself.
I would like to know more details about the obstacles you've been dealing with the local authorities, or you didn't face, maybe it went very smooth.
I wouldn't say obstacles. I would say it's just like for any sort of group of people getting to know each other, it takes some time to actually develop that interaction and to get to a common understanding of where we want to go. And of course it takes a lot of back and forth at the beginning, but thanks to the support of the Ministry of Antiquities, and then afterwards also of the Historic Cairo project, which sort of overtook in terms of oversight in general this part of the city as well. Then it went really smoothly as soon as everybody was on the same page.
Right. Of course, it's a great idea to make this house usable by the craftsmen, the local craftsmen in the areas, in this area in particular. I mean, and to an opportunity for them to make better income. But I would like to know more of what other events to promote them in this area. Are there any other events that are planned?
Yes, actually, the fair that you were referring to earlier was sort of a bridge between two projects. The first project was the house that we talked about earlier, and this project is now coming to an end because the place is restored and it's owned by the community. Now, opposite there is the entrance of the former palace of the Sultan, which we're supporting the same architectural studio because they have all the knowledge and the relation with the community and with the partners as well on the government side. And so we will renovate this space to make it an art platform for the different artists, not only of the neighborhood, but also of the Cairo area, and hopefully also it will attract European artists.
Right. How and why did you think of this location to promote art in general?
Well, I think This, and sometimes you have to give back to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, is really is the drive of Arkinos. Arkinos is headed by Agnieszka, who is a Polish citizen, but who has been living in Egypt for years and years, and she has worked extensively on the Mamluk heritage of the city, and she's an architect herself, and she, I think, is deeply in love with that area and really had that drive. And so when she proposed those projects, which were part of the competitive process and assessed independently, the assessors were really convinced by the idea.
Right. What other activities do you think would promote this area? Do you think, for example, movie shooting would be a good idea in this area? In this place, more exhibitions?
I think exhibitions, I mean, the art crafts, as we can see from the pictures, I mean, it's really, really high quality, and you can see the love that they put in what they do. But it's not only that, it's also the entire area itself is extremely interesting, and it's very nice, and I mean, I try whenever I have visitors to also pass by there, and it's not always on sort of the general tourist map. Not only the foreign tourists, but also the Egyptian tourists, and I can only encourage everyone to go there. And so by going there, I think it will sort of also strengthen the efforts that are already being made by the communities to actually display different elements of the local microculture.
Right. Before we go into more details, we're going to a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching Today's Youth live on Nile TV International. And back to our guest, Mr. Sebastian Frenner, Head of the Social Development at the European Union. Sir, and going back into more details about the fair itself, I would like to know more about the type of participation at the fair and the agenda that was planned for that day.
Okay, so I mean, there were two fairs actually. There was, on the one hand, there was a European but Cairo-based artist who was exhibiting her pieces of art, which are all about Egypt and Cairo. And there was what we talked about, the local craftsmen who were displaying their art. So that was it. So in itself, that's already sort of a bridge between the two. And there was a lot of participation by the local community, but also by Cairenes and the expat community in Cairo. So we were blessed with the presence of a few government officials from the Ministry of Antiquities, but also from the governorate, who have been very supportive, as well as from different other organizations and agencies which have helped make this project the success that it is.
So you're getting enough support from the Ministry of Antiquities, and you think they are giving you the support you need, the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Antiquities?
Well, we have been able to renovation of this house, and we have been able to open this house and make it a lively place. So I would say yes, indeed.
Right. In your opinion, what's the impact of art and culture on people?
I think art, I mean, just like many other domains in life, is just something that makes us, is basically who we are. It's a reflection. Art in itself is just a reflection of the environment that people make of it. And so it's at the core of who we are.
How could this affect the society and the country in general, any country? Well,
it's like the chicken and the egg. I don't know which one, if it's the society that affects art or art that affects society, and sometimes it's probably a mix of both, and it goes hand in hand. The idea, I think, is really about people coming together and expressing themselves.
Right. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we also have the Facebook page displayed here on the screen. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can send it on Today's Youth Facebook page. Right, and back, can you tell us more about the projects you're working on, other projects you're working on right now?
Okay. stick to culture, if you don't mind. So
Right.
I'll just highlight a few different examples so you see the diversity of what we do. For instance, in November, we'll be having a conference with the Biblioteca Alexandrina in Alexandria. And the idea is really to have a brainstorming of different stakeholders, ministries, officials, the Biblioteca, civil society, the private sector, on what does it mean to have a policy for culture in Egypt. That's one. Another one is what I briefly touched upon about earlier is the support that we give to EQI for the renovation of the Tutankhamun Nile in the Egyptian Museum on Tahrir Square. And maybe just two other ones, and then I'll stop there. One is AUED, who is actually working with the kids in Upper Egypt to develop a lot of cultural activities and cultural centers along the Nile. And the last one is the Retune Music Academy, which is sort of a little bit like Arabs or Egyptians Got Talent, helping young upcoming musicians to do their first record and also do their first concert. And we'll be having a concert in Cairo in December and another one in Upper Egypt in partnership actually with our other project, which shows the synergies in the beginning of next year.
Right. We're used to being defined by foreigners. Our culture is being defined usually through the pharaonic, ancient pharaonic Egypt. After you came to Egypt and you lived in here for around 2 years now, I would like you to tell me more about your definition of the Egyptian culture.
That is actually a really tough question, just because there are so many different layers of culture in Egypt, whether it's pharaonic, Islamic, modern, if you're talking about dance, about arts, about painting, about movies, and about all those things which unfortunately, as a non-Arabic speaker, I think I'm losing on many of those layers. But the layers that I can see already is just very vast, very diverse, and very vibrant. And we really hope that it will continue like this and that there will be more and more connections between different types of arts. Some of them are very elite in the sense that they require a lot of understanding in order for someone to enjoy it, and some of them are very easy access. And I think all those different types of art should be communicating more together in order for all the people to be able to enjoy it.
Right. Mr. Sebastian Trenner, Head of the Social Development at the European Union, many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, with this we wrap up this edition of Today's Youth. Many thanks for watching, and I would like to extend my thanks also to our studio and our team here at Nile TV International. Don't forget to join us next week, same time. Till then, it's goodbye. Thank you.